Good stuff there, everybody. The Packers get a little bit better. Eagles still top of the NFC, in my opinion, coming into the season. We got 6 days from the opener, and it's versus the Dallas Cowboys, who, I just said it, they waved the white flag. I think they waved it, everybody. We'll see how that game kicks off here next Thursday night. Looking forward to that. John, let's get into that Eagles roster and some of the changes there. All right, I mentioned the initial 53 did not last very long, John. Let's walk through some of the changes that have come and starting with the more meaningful ones. What do you got for me, John, on the Eagles roster and where that stands? Because they're taking and baking, making a lot of moves.
Well, I think the biggest thing is you brought up the practice squad. I mean, they got 3 guys that they're supposed to sign to the practice squad. They already filled out their practice squad. So there's going to be big movements when it comes to the practice squad. Before they're back on the practice field Sunday. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, they'll practice in advance of Thursday night's game. So the latest guy you just mentioned, Javon Baker, to the practice squad. He's another Alabama guy. He played at Alabama, then he transferred out. So I think a lot of people aren't going to recognize he's an Alabama guy, but he was teammates with Devontae and all that. So they doubled down on their SEC proclivity, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But again, he'll start on the practice squad. Audric Estime is still coming to the practice squad.
Yeah,
and they're going to have to
read about him, John. And then I saw the roster and I was like, wait a second, he's not all there. Where the heck is Audric Estime? So let's see what they do.
Yeah, he's coming. And then Ambry Thomas, another cornerback who was a 3rd-round pick in San Francisco. They always get ex-San Francisco 3rd-round picks. He's going to be added. So, yeah, they have a full practice squad. The 16 guys they had practicing yesterday, and they're going to have to cut 3 of those guys to make room for 3 on the practice squad. So that's more. We had already talked about Lampkin getting claimed on waivers. And please, can I stop Trevor Keegan, because the Cowboys claim Trevor Keegan. Trevor Keegan's not giving up all the secrets because there are no secrets. You get film, and if you can't decipher the film on your own, Trevor Keegan's not going to help you out. But, yeah, they claimed Trevor Keegan. Tristan McCullum got claimed by Las Vegas. So the interesting to me with Tristan McCullum, because they weren't going to bring Keegan back because they got Lampkin. The interesting part on McCullum is he went to Las Vegas, which is where Brandon Hunt went and Anthony Patch went, 2 of the Eagles executives. So obviously that's the connection. So they brought Marcus Epps back, but did they bring Marcus Epps back because they, Brandon gave him a nod saying, hey, we're going to grab Tristan, or did they bring him back because he's better? He certainly was better in 2022 when he was a starter for a Super Bowl team, but he tore his ACL last year. Reports out of Boston where he wasn't doing great in training camp there. So I don't know. The guy from 2022 shows up. He's a big upgrade. If not,
I don't think that guy's showing up. I think that's foolish to think.
Yeah. So, and they might have, like I said, because we don't know, waivers aren't official until 4:00 the next day. But Brandon and Anthony could have given Howie a heads up and said, yeah, we're going to claim him. So, and then they might have pivoted, or they might have just said, hey, we want to get better. Tristan didn't have a great summer in my estimation. A lot of tackling issues. But he was okay as a fourth safety. But I don't think it's going to hurt you that much. So, but those moves were already done. And now the practice squad, there's a lot going on with the practice squad. They got to cut 3 guys now to get everybody, and they want to get on the practice squad.
Which names jump out that you think they'll move on from to get these guys on there?
Well, corners, you have 3 corners on there. So you have Perry Nickerson, you have Brandon Johnson, you have Eli Ricks. To me, that's between
It's got to
I
be Brandon Johnson, right?
no, see, I think the exact opposite.
Why? Because they
I
don't have slot backups.
exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
So and Perry, I mean, Perry can play the slot as well, but he's 30, so
Yeah, I
I
like
mean,
Perry. That's why I leaned Perry.
and Eli, I mean, at what point,
Perry's got character though, John. The long hair, the 30-year-old story. I like Perry Nickerson.
well, and Ambry, and I'm surprised they're signing Ambry Thomas because he's been a disappointment, but um, I would think he's an upgrade over Ricks or more than anybody else. So maybe they finally waved goodbye to Eli, um, or they think. I'm not even sure if he is an upgrade. So they're obviously not going to keep 4 corners. That's why I say they're going to delete from there. Now, at wide receiver, again, they kept 3 now because Britton Covey's back. We should have started with that. So, but obviously, Britton's here to be the punt returner. Why else would he be here? So that would mean Terrace Marshall or Elijah Cooks goes, which that's kind of what's your favorite player? Do you want the contested catch guy? Which I would think because the guy you're bringing in is more of a well-rounded receiver. So I'm going to guess Terrace Marshall's the guy to go. And then Estime is more difficult because they didn't keep a running back, which was weird. And that's why they didn't keep a running back. My guess is they take from the tight ends. They kept DJ Jenkins and Cam Latu at tight end. And Cam's going to lose that battle. So those are my 3 guesses of making room for the guys coming in.
Yeah, probably right on page with you there, John. Good stuff. Who has the most impact here on this? I know it's kind of boring stuff because it's the back end of the roster. It's the practice squad, but look, it all matters in my opinion. And the Eagles continue to shake and bake, obviously trying to improve the bottom of the roster in any way they see fit. Who do you think has the most opportunity to make an impact? And do you like or not like what the Eagles are doing with the practice squad right now?
I mean, it's the practice squad is one. They take it very seriously, though. We were talking to Alec Hallaby yesterday, assistant GM. They have this mentality of 1 through 70, not 1 through 53. So they build the roster with a 1 through 70 mentality. And then I have a 1 through 48 mentality because that's how many you can have up for game day. And then they have you this little pocket of developmental that you can use on Cam Williams or Willie Lampkin because they're not going to be active. I don't think Ty Robinson's going to be active, or at least early in the season. And you can let those guys develop with that little pocket at the back end of the 53. So they have a very specific strategy, and the practice squad's part of it. But I mean, the obvious one that's going to get elevated early is Britton. If he's healthy,
Yeah. There's your punt return answer.
Yeah. And that they've done that in the past. When they had him undrafted, they didn't put him on the initial 53. They elevated him for 3 weeks, and then they put him on the 53.
Will you be advocating, John, still for Cooper DeJean and saying,
"Oh yeah,
he's a roster spot. Get rid of Covey."
That's hard because Covey's like the best dude in the world. I love that dude. So I'm not advocating getting rid of him, but my rant about yesterday stands. I don't get the NFL. Now, for a lot of people to say, McMullen, they brought in Brittany. If you listen to me, which I know they hear what they want to hear, I said, oh, I'm not disputing that everyone believes you shouldn't use Cooper DeJean as a punt returner. He's too valuable as a defensive player. I'm saying my opinion is it's bullshit. And, people have bought into it. And it's turned into this, oh, how could you possibly do that? Well, you could because it's no more dangerous than any other play. So the only argument is he's playing more plays. But if you believe that, as I said, and the odds increase the more you play, then he shouldn't be playing on base defense, if that's your belief. But he's going to, because that's going to increase his opportunities to get injured. People overthink this stuff. You got a great punt returner, why not use him? But Britton's great at it too. Different type of great. He's not quite as explosive as Cooper, but he will do all the little things. He will save you field position. That's big with Nick. It's like half of the battle. Don't let that damn thing roll 20 yards.
Yeah, right.
So now he's coming off a serious injury, obviously, but he had practiced all, so presumably he's okay. And yeah, I mean, he's the obvious guy that will get an opportunity, week 1, week 2, week 3, at least.
We'll see what they end up doing. John, what do you think of that 53 now, man? We're officially, John, at the end of the preseason. I mean, this is our last football Friday before the regular season. But by next football Friday, the Eagles will have already played a football game, if you can believe that. Where do you think this roster stands going into the year? You think it's good enough? John, one thing I've been saying before you respond to this is I think it's really tough naturally, human nature-wise, to look at this team and judge it properly at this point because we're comparing it to the final product of last year. Last year's defense, week 1 through 4, wasn't so good. It was a buildup. It was each period or each week they stacked on top of the week prior, and it culminated in their most dominant performance on the biggest stage of the Super Bowl. How can we compare the 2025 team to that team? It's impossible to do, but we have to do our best with what we know right now. What do you feel about this roster coming into the start of the year this year?
Same thing. Top 20 is awesome. After that, it's Katie bar the door. Hold on. Some guys, if they're forced to play, will persevere. Some guys won't. But they're not much different. But that's the NFL. What makes the Philadelphia Eagles is the stars.
Right.
And those are the guys that are going to play the vast majority of the snaps. And that's why they're so good. And when they stayed healthy, and the vast majority did last year, it's pretty good. The depth to your point, you're right. I mean, now we have the benefit of hindsight. The depth doesn't look nearly as good as last year's group. Maybe some guys step up, but if you're being honest, it doesn't look as good on paper. And they've highlighted that by how much movement they've had on the back end. They had 5 August trades. They didn't have 5 August trades because they were happy with it. They're trying to bring people in that are better than what they had.
Do you think the Micah Parsons move yesterday could change their thought? Not change completely, because I think they have a system that they stick to, and that's the right way to do your business, is to have a foundation that you build on, and you're not, blown like a tumbleweed based on what everybody else does. But I do think for a team, and you had been saying, basically reporting, the Eagles were interested in an edge rusher. Whether they would get one, we didn't know. But do you think yesterday's move changed maybe the sense of urgency that they have in adding to that room?
No, I think it was I think the urgency was there at a different level, of course, not at the splash level. I think it was there, but again, you need two to tango. I think it's still there. I think Howie kind of admitted it. We're going to see what we have in September and make a decision. But for Micah changing, if the Packers win the Super Bowl, that's for down the line. That will change their mindset. Yes. But that's for down the line. Not drastically now. Other than
I don't get that. I don't get why that wouldn't. Why wait for after the year?
Well, it's just the human nature of urgency. Oh, Jesus, they won the Super Bowl.
Don't you? I don't know. You tell me. Am I off base on that? You have a window right now, John. Saquon Barkley's in the prime of his career. A.J. Brown's in the prime. You have a defense that has the amount of talent it does, really strictly because they haven't had to pay him yet. I mean, this team is going to change when you pay guys like Jalen Carter, Cooper, Quinion, however far out that's going to be. I mean, this is the window for the Birds. Doesn't mean they can't extend it. Doesn't mean they can't have a good team in the future too. But this is a rare window right here. If I'm them, I got to double down on this and take this opportunity and try and put myself in the best position to succeed this year.
Well, it's easy to say, but once you win, I mean, there's the human nature aspect of letting the sigh of relief out and go, oh, we got it. And it's easy to say, just do it again. And I think from verbalizing it and from stating it, they've done a better job than most. They constantly talk about Landon Dickerson being the most vociferous. Don't talk about last year. Don't talk about defending. Don't talk about all that stuff. That team's over. This is a new team. They verbalized it brilliantly, but I think you see it more by Howie and building the roster. There's the human nature aspect of the urgency dips. Not that they don't want to win, but they use that goodwill in the bank to reset for what's coming. And what's coming is, I haven't heard a lot of people about this, and it's not apples to apples because they're different positions, but make no mistake about it. This contract caught Drew Rosenhaus's eyes, and he's going to start going in and say, well, Jalen Carter should be the highest paid player in the history of football. Trust me, he's going to say that. I don't think he's going to get that because different positions, like I said, and edge rush are still more valuable around the league as a whole. But he's going to get more money because of that deal. So he took that goodwill and he said, all right, this is it. This is the crux. We're going to reset from the cash over cap mentality that they've had over the past decade. They've spent more money up front, and they got to restock the coffers and do it over again, at least until the NFL stops it. So look, if they didn't win the Super Bowl, if they're in the game and they lose the game, it's different. I don't care what anybody says. They will deny it. But if you lose that game, it's different. If you lose that game, your edge rushing room looks different.
But this is such a good organization, John. Don't you think they know, like, you can't rest on your laurels. You can't sit on your hands in this league. They know that, no?
Easy to say, harder to do. They say it. They say it. You saw what they did.
Right.
There is a natural, it is almost at a subconscious level to have that sigh of relief. And if you don't have it, you have a greater sense of urgency. And you wouldn't be a human being if that didn't change. If you're in this industry and you win the Super Bowl, and that's why it's one of the many reasons why it's so hard to repeat, you have a sense of satisfaction, and it's tougher to have the same urgency, right? No matter how you try to replicate, no matter how many times you tell yourself, that's last year, this is this year, 33% turnover, yada, yada, yada. It's all true, but it's hard to have the same urgency.
There's no doubt about it. John, what do you think the strengths of this team are? Top three, because I know offensive line is number one. It's probably always going to be number one for the foreseeable future with Jeff Stoutland. What are the strengths of this team coming into the year? We're 6 days out from the opener.
Yeah, I think it remains it's usually offensive line, defensive front. This time I'll narrow it down to offensive line, defensive tackle. I think those are the biggest strengths. Obviously, they're loaded at skill position, but the reason I put that more because I say it all the time. If you can't block people, you can't play offense. Doesn't matter how good your skill position people are. And, from both sides of the ball, offensively, obviously they have the great offensive line, so they're going to be able to do a lot of things they want to do offensively. And with the defensive tackles, you're going to create pressure that other teams can't deal with, and therefore will mitigate their skill position players. So that remains their two biggest strengths, and that's purposeful. The question, and my question, and a lot of people's questions has been, man, why did you bullshit it at edge rusher? And their
I'll tell you
answer,
what, John, if they made the move for Trayvon Walker, Jalen Hunt, Nolan Smith with Jalen Carter, Moro Ujomo, and Jordan Davis, that would be one of the best defensive lines in football.
yeah, and they still might be. And their argument will be, we believe in Nolan, we believe in Jalix, and they still might be, and they might be right. But
I mean, look, I think you can be optimistic on players and still have to have a realistic expectation of trajectory. I mean, I don't think anybody that's realistic about Jalen Hunt is going to put him on a trajectory to just explode to the next. I mean, it takes time. It's the NFL, guys. It takes time to get good and to acclimate. I mean, this guy was a safety a couple years ago, for crying out loud. Now we want him to be a dominant edge rusher. I mean, look, I like the player. I think he's going to be a great player in the league one day. I don't know if he's going to take that type of jump in year 2.
Yeah, I'm, maybe Bryce Huff affected Howie a little bit more than we think. And maybe he'll be more honest about that. Said, well, why am I putting so many assets into this position? It's interesting. I was talking to Alec. I asked Alec about it. Alec doesn't answer player questions. He just deflects. So I tend to ask him more philosophical questions. And one of the ones was when he got here in 2009, the Eagles, they still are, but, when it comes to data and analytics and things like that, they were way ahead of the curve compared to the rest of the league. Now everybody's kind of caught up and everybody has the same information. And I asked him, does that make it harder from that aspect to have that advantage to win on the margins, yada, 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 all the stuff the Eagles like to hear. And he admitted, yeah, it does. But you're always looking ahead. You're looking for the next thing. Maybe the next thing for Howie is you shouldn't be paying your edge rushers $50 million. Well, not the case of, but the Eagles' belief, and I'm not talking about Micah, because the Eagles' belief, and this is with Saquon, a lot of people say, well, you shifted their running back thinking. They shifted their linebacker thinking with Zach Bond. And he got asked that question and said flat out, it's more about the player than the position.
Right.
Like, if you have a top, no matter the position, pay him.
Right. Zach Bond was arguably the best linebacker in football last year.
Which I agree with. That's always been my philosophy.
Yeah, it has. Players first.
Yeah. So, it's not about, I think people get caught up more in the position, but when you don't have stars, and Howie's the one who said it, there are different ways to do it. When you don't have stars, you build a bunch of just good players, and maybe they've done that. But that seems to be their philosophy on the edge room, and maybe Bryce Huff scarred him a little bit more. Like, we didn't know about his scarring from Jalen Reagor. Now he's very honest about it.
Yeah.
Originally, we didn't know about it.
The thing that gives me pause on that, and you always say this, John, it's player evaluation. And how we can look and say, all right, we evaluated that player wrong. But that shouldn't scare you out of thinking, oh, every edge rusher that we want to bring in isn't going to work out. I mean, I'm
not saying definitely. It's just got me thinking about it.
Yeah, no, I think it's a fair thought process by you.
From what Alex said, and I don't agree with it. I think that remains one of the most important positions in football outside of quarterback. And I think they're both on the same level, edge and defensive tackle. I think they're both extremely important. But I think as a whole, and it served them well, the Eagles have always in this group, in this era, of Howie Roseman have always stressed offensive line, defensive line first. And they're still doing it with the offensive line, and they're still doing it with the defensive tackles. They did not do it with the edge rushers this year. Man, it has served him well over the years. And we'll see if that pivot serves him well this year.
I'm just a little concerned about the resting on your laurels comment that I made, where you have a team that dominated so well last year. And I look, the team should feel great. I mean, I feel great as a fan. I think this team is still one of the best teams in football, maybe the best team in football coming into the year. But you and Silly have been beating me over the head all summer with the baseball bat. Hey, look at all those guys they lost on defense. Dude, what do you think? That's not going to impact the team at all? It is, and I understand that, but I would be pushing, man. I would be pushing as much as I can to try and get that defense as close to what it was last year as possible, because I think that revealed to you the right formula. I mean, and I don't think you should rest here and let this edge rushing group as it is. I mean, you've been talking about the edge rushing group for months, back to April.
Yeah, I didn't believe we'd be here on the cusp of week one with this group. I did not believe it.
You said in fact, I think you made a proclamation, didn't you?
I don't know. I probably did.
Just like they're not going to go into the year with these edge rushers.
I did not believe it. And they're going to go. And he's kicked the can down the road before, most notable with players that he wanted to get something like Bradbury kicking, but a different kick the can down the road.
Way different.
He specifically said we have to see what we have in September. Now, you can say he's talking about the roster as a whole, but he was really talking about edge rusher. We have to see what we have in September. So, this is put up or shut up. Those guys have a short leash. And we're going to see what it looks like.
I just don't know what kind of move you would make, once the season is started. I don't know if a bigger move is. I don't know. I feel like it was too late already for a big move, but Micah Parsons got traded yesterday, so crazier things can happen.
Well, they were never in that conversation.
No, I'm not saying they would have been in that conversation. Well, real quick, would you have done that if you were the Eagles? 2 1s and let's say I don't know, Jordan Davis.
Compared to from a football perspective, yes. From a business perspective, it doesn't work. The Eagles have too many good players, which is a nice problem to have. But you also have to that's why they weren't involved in the conversation. Well, and plus the Eagles probably aren't trading. The Cowboys aren't trading them to the Eagles. You never know with Jerry, but I don't think he's that dumb. So a lot of things factor into it, but just if none of that existed, just from a player thing, yes. Come on, the Eagles are picking same as the Packers, even more of a level. With Micah Parsons, the Eagles are picking 28-32, 28 being the worst possible scenario. So they're very low level first round picks. I named the player. Nolan Smith, Jordan. Sorry, I love you guys, but no, you're going.
Yeah.
And they wanted defensive tackle, so Jordan would be the guy. Run stopping defensive tackle. Yes. I mean, he's got to go.
No, I would do it too. I'm just saying. I was trying to, in my head, I was trying to envision a trade that would have kept Jordan Davis, because Micah is not the greatest edge against the run. So it would have been nice to keep a great run stopper, and then you have the pressure off the edge. I think it would have been a great combination. But that's all hearsay. None of that's happening. He's now with the Green Bay Packers. Good stuff. Great opening hour here on Birds 365. We broke down the Micah Parsons trade, what it means for the NFC, what the Green Bay Packers look like now, how they're going to compete, and what the NFC East looks like and what that outlook looks like. So if you missed that, go back and watch the open of the show. I will post it up on the channel as well. So appreciate everybody being here today. Hit that like button. Drop your comments down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I want to thank our great crowd in here, guys. 6 days out from the opener. We made it, everybody. Thanks to all the people who've been watching us all off season long, and thanks to the people who are back in the mix for the season right around the corner. We'll take a quick commercial break. When we come back, All right, we'll set the stage for that week 1 game next week. We'll talk about the injuries on the roster. We'll talk about the position battles that we watched all training camp. Who's going to start in that week 1 game? We'll talk about it all. Coming up next here on Birds 365.